Hello, and a very warm welcome once again to the Startups Coalition first webinar in the webinar series. Today we're going to take you through the startup's journey from idea to product. I would like to welcome Mr. Niladri Malik Chaudhary, founder CEO of Excellentro, who is going to take us through this process, the journey from an idea to product, which depends on various factors. There is definitely a need to give equal, if not more importance on the delivery side of the ecosystem. I'm going to hand over to Niladri to take forward the session and introduce himself and thank him for spending the invaluable knowledge and time with us on this webinar. Over to you, Niladri.
Thanks, Ritika. Good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for joining this session. How many of you have, with a show of hand, can say that you already have a product which is running, and how many of you are in the idea stage?
Okay, so please type your answers in the space there so that we know you can hear us and we know that you can ask questions if any. At any point, if you have any questions, please feel free to shoot them here in the window.
There's a question tab. You can use that question tab to type in your questions.
So we have Sandy who says his product is already ready to release. Would you type what kind of a product it is or what industry it deals with? Thanks, Sarma. Would it be okay if you could type in the product or the industry you deal in?
Okay. So let's start off. We all have different ideas, and we are great in our own areas of operation, and the most common area that we see for any of these startups is technology. Now today, everybody has access to technology. Everybody can go in and do something with technology, which is amazing. But technology alone cannot provide a competitive advantage. So we have to understand certain context, certain basic principles when we are going ahead with becoming an entrepreneur. So the first point is technology alone cannot provide a competitive advantage. Our competitors are also having access to the same set of things which are available to us. So technology itself will not give us or bring us customers. Number two, good ideas can and will be copied quickly. So we should not be thinking too much about whether we should go ahead and show our product, whether we should go ahead and talk about our ideas. Hey, if the idea is good, the others will take it. It's only the bad ideas people will not take it. So if people takes it and tries to copy, definitely it means that there is a market for it. People wants it. Look at the mobile phone industry. There are so many of the different competitors playing in the same area. Is it the same one? Is iPhone 2 worried about Samsung, or Samsung 2 worried about Oppo or something like that? Everything is more or less similar and everybody is doing business. It's a huge pie which everybody has a piece to grab, and that's what is important, and that is possible when we really solve a problem, when we give something which is easy to use, which the customer wants. And we need to look at it and find out whether the customers really want it. So where can we find the competitive edge? The competitive edge comes not with technology, not with a great idea. Those has to be there, but what is important today to compete is that now that everybody else is copying and trying to do the same thing, what do we do? How fast can we scale? Can we increase from that 20 customers to 2,000 customers? How much of time do we need? Can we do it in the next 3 months, 6 months? Second is lowest cost, but be careful on this. Lowest cost is like running a race to reach the bottom. And believe me, you cannot go beyond free. So if everybody tries to be giving free products, where do we reach? Can we go further down than that? So how do we compete? So that's not really the option. So that second point that I have talked here, we should cut it out from our list. Lowest cost is not that important. Scaling is important, and sustained innovation. People should start to see what all we can do. Do you see an iPhone talking about going for a lower price? Not even a Micromax will talk about going to a lower price. I'll give a discount. No. They are talking about new features. They are talking about new ways of the interface so that it makes the users to find it much easier to do what they want to do with that phone. Now those are things that needs to be looked at. So this, if we look at this sustained innovation, there's a lot that needs to go beyond or behind the scenes, which the entrepreneur has to do and his team has to do. And that is the challenges of the startup. So first of all, an idea which people wants to buy, not because it is technically great or anything. We have to first find out, it may be a very simple idea, but that is what people want. Think of an idea like your freshmenu.com. Think of your any of these products, the service that is coming up like Runner and all. Who does the last mile of delivery? All those kind of services are coming up. Think of products like Dropbox. These are ideas which are not complicated, but these are solving the real pains of people, and that's why people likes it. That's why people wants to pay for it and go forward. So that brings us, what are the minimum viable products that we need to look at? We need to see the product. Now, when we say product, one point we have to remember, customer doesn't need everything. We don't need to have a complete 100 feature product which we have to take it to the market. So we spend the next 5 years doing it. By that time we burn out, and when we go by the product, by that time the need for the customer has already changed. So we have to go to the customer when he needs it. So the time to market is important. Do you know what percentage on an average, what percentage of features we use in a mobile phone? The survey shows that we do not use more than 20% of the features. So what is the point in trying to build 100% of the features and then launch it to the market? By that time your competitor has done something different. Bring it to the market with at least a minimum viable product, keep improving on it. And the more faster you bring the product, you get to know your success and failure. You start getting the feedback from your customers, which is important. And that is the feedback which you get from your customer, which you can use and which you can incorporate in those smaller increments of work that you have already done. So instead of wasting all the work that you would do over a period of 1 year, if you can deliver in every month or every 3 months or every alternate month, your amount of rework is much less and you have a much acceptable product in the market. And to do that, you need team. And the team, you have to be very, very careful about choosing it. What you need in the team is not all technical people, not all people who knows only one thing. You need a team which can complement you. You need a team which can complement and become one unit to deliver everything that needs to be delivered. Somebody who is good in accounts, somebody who is good in designing, somebody who is good in the technology, somebody who is good in sales and marketing. You need a team to complement each other to build it as a unit. It's not like one captain or 100 captains in one ship, but there is no sailor. You need the capability of every different types of staff who should be there and take it forward. Think of a situation, you are on a flight. You get into the flight, the pilot comes out and welcomes you when you are getting into the flight. You sit in your respective thing, he gives all those commands and all, and he goes inside. He takes the flight up, he goes to the flying altitude, puts it on that cruise control, comes back, comes out of the cabin, and he only starts serving you a cold drinks and a snacks and something. How comfortable will you be to be in that flight? Believe me, this is also something which has happened. There was a flight from Calcutta to Jamshedpur by a operator called Vayudut, and this is exactly what used to happen in that half-an-hour flight. And we used to be scared of going in that flight. We would rather pray for a train or a car. So you need a team which works together. Each one has its own role. Everything cannot be done by one person. But at the same time, you do not have the luxury of having a huge team where everybody is doing every different work. So we need to cross-skill. We need to have each one supporting each other and taking up the work and delivering finally what is important for the company to deliver. And that's where execution comes in. People needs to know how to execute. We have to be ready not only to keep on accommodating the changes, the feedback that comes from the customer at every increment, but also we should be ready to deliver not only the new product, the changes, but also support them once the product starts getting sold. So there also we will not get a huge team like HP or Dell or somebody will have, where there is a support team, there is operations, there is development. We need to bring all those together, and that's why we will see that even for startups, the DevOps culture is something which is the only way to go ahead. Not only for the big organizations, but also for startups. And obviously we all need money. So finance is important, but there are many such webinars and seminars which keeps going on telling you how to get finance. Now, if we look at it, we are basically trying to innovate. In our first slide itself, we said that the only way to be able to go forward is by innovation. And what is that? So you start with an idea, you go to the product, there is a lead time, and then you have a feedback which is giving you whether the customer is having a aha moment or not. And what we see, by the time we reach that end of the first lead cycle itself, when we try to build the complete product, we fail. 96% of such thing fails, whereas 4% only is successful. But we want to change that. We don't want to fail. Failing is good, but as long as we learn from the failure. The learning from failure is more than the learning from success. And that is where we have to do things in a different way. We need a fast-paced reaction to change. And the more change we bring in smaller increments, the more testing we need. So we need to test out the water with our customers. So if you look at it, I will tell you the story of Dropbox. In 2007, when Dropbox started, it was just an idea. But they knew that they are trying to solve a very important problem, that people cannot send bigger files. And there is a need to send those bigger files. So what they did, they were building on it, but they realized that they need to do lean startup. The owner actually had read the book of Lean Startup by Eric Ries, and he liked the idea. Now the product was not ready. It was not possible to build the complete product and take it in the market. So what they did was they created a video. They created a video of what they are expecting this product to do, and they published that video. They published that video to all their social media sources that was possible. In one single night, the hit on the site changed from 5,000 to 75,000. And they got an immediate feedback from the community that yes, people wants that product. People wants the solution that they are trying to provide. That gave them the confidence. That gave them the idea of going forward and how to do it. So they kept building it and taking that MVP or the minimum viable product to the customer, taking shorter feedback loops, and as in this diagram, they are getting a aha result in a very shorter span rather than waiting till the end and fail. And that kept also one thing more which kept moving was your inflow of fund. So you are not just spending, but you are trying to look for a person who will give you fund, who will give you a venture capitalist or an angel investor or something like that, but they have their own product giving them money to go forward. To do that, they also required a cross-functional team to design, develop, manage, market at the same time. And when we say cross-functional, it means a cross-functional self-organizing team. That means everybody in the team can do multiple work, not every work, but multiple type of work. And they all know that it is that team's responsibility to make that product a success, not just my portion is, oh, I'm supposed to code when somebody else gives me a specification. I can give you a specification when somebody else has done a designing. I can do a design when somebody else gives me a requirement. I can do marketing when the product is ready. No, everybody supports each other and takes it forward. And that's what one of the, again, another principle of Agile, where we are talking about a cross-functional team who works together, who are self-organized, and they understand that is the only way of going forward. Now let me just stop at this point of time and ask you if there is any questions which is there.
Thanks, Niladri. Guys, please, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. This is your one chance to, get face-to-face answers from a mentor who's been there, done it, and who knows it all in the specialized area from idea to product. So we do have a question here, Niladri, from Rajesh, who says and asks, what are the views about disruptive innovation? Would you like to address that now, or would you like to take it towards the end of the session?
No, I will answer it now itself when we are talking about disruptive. See, all disruptive innovation is also related to solving a problem. You are thinking of a disruptive idea. I will give you a very simple example, again back to the mobile. What was phones used for? Phones were used for calling and talking to people over a long distance. What was camera used for? To take pictures. One day, the film cameras got stopped. People started looking at DSLRs and all these digital cameras. Why? Because then we don't have to buy films, we don't have the restriction, we can add a chip and we can have more memory, and there is no problem of that 36 snaps are only that can be taken for our honeymoon, and we cannot take more, we have to buy another film. We don't know after getting those developed whether those honeymoon pictures will at all come or it all comes blank, so whole life the wife will be unhappy about it. So we don't want to take those risks, right? So that's where somebody went and did a DSLR. Now what more can you do? Only improve megapixels? How do you change that? How do you make it more disruptive? And that's where you combine the camera and the phone together. So you have an equipment which is with you and you can take it to wherever you want. Just take it out of the pocket, take a click, and the photo is saved. So you have combined two products. Not necessary that every time you have to create a new product. So creating a mobile phone was a new product. Creating a SLR was a new product. But making a camera phone was not a new product as such, a completely new product. It was merging of the two, but it was disruptive enough. So you have to constantly find what you are trying to solve with that disruption. Disruption is not about technology. Technology is enabling you. You cannot do without technology, yes, but it is an enabler. You need to first address the problem. What is it that you are giving to the customer for which he is willing to buy? Which should be simple, which should be easy to use, which solves his problem. He doesn't have to now carry that heavy DSLR camera with 3 different lenses, etc. He can do whatever he feels like. He can share, and with internet coming in, he can share this now with various things. So does this answer your question?
Rajesh, does that answer your question? We were fine, would be good. So we do have another question which says, can a minimal viable product be a prototype with limited features that shows capability for extended features?
You have to start with prototyping, but at the same time, the ultimate idea of minimum viable product is a completely usable product, but not with everything. So if we are looking at a phone, is calling the most important thing? Start off with giving the market with a phone which has the calling features, all types of different features that is required for calling, talking to people across the mobile. Then you come up with, okay, let me add the still photograph part of it. Then we add the video photograph part of it. And gradually, if you look at a Nikon, if you look at Canon, any of these SLRs also, DSLRs also, if you look at it, initially the DSLRs used to take only still photos. Did they wait for 5 years to also create the DSLR which will take videos? No. They handed it over with the still photos and later on changed it and added additional features of videos. Then other things came in. Okay, from the camera, now you can not only take the photo but also share it through email or over the internet with some facility. Now that is minimum viable product, but whatever you are giving, the customer has to be able to use it, and it is only when they can use it, they can give you a feedback. If it is only a prototype, it is also you will get feedback, but that is only to an extent which is more theoretical. It is good for your initial designing, initial requirement gathering, but when we are talking about MVP, we are finally talking about giving something which customer is ready to pay for.
So I think Zamir also wants to ask if marketing halfway through the development of the product is a good idea at all. With a MVP, having a prototype, would it be good to start marketing it?
Okay, so now the point here is marketing. We have learned in our childhood one saying. It says charity begins at home. So we have to start with people we know and try to sell it to them. If it is the people who we know, if they buy it, first of all, there is anyway a bias. They know you. They know me. They will most probably try to help me. Not necessary, but they will. And in that case, if they agree to buy it, that means you still have a buy-in. Then you are more confident to go out to the external market and start marketing it. So your marketing also starts with your 4 F's. So who are the 4 Fs? Actually, people talks about 3, I talk about 4. So first is family, friend, father, and please don't forget your father-in-law. So get them to invest on your idea, and if they are willing to invest, you can be rest assured others you will be able to convince to get invested on your ideas. And that's how you market first with people who you know, connections that you have, network that you have, and then move on to the greater world.
That's a very good point, Niladri. My father always says that you don't get to choose your father, but you definitely get to choose your father-in-law. So be wise there.
Yeah, does this answer Zameen's question?
I hope, Zamir, does that answer your question? Guys, any other questions, please feel free to type in here while Niladri takes you through the presentation further on.
Okay, so now the next point is, now the product is already in the market. You have delivered certain increments of the product. You are now not only responsible for making the changes with the feedbacks that are coming, you are also going ahead and building more and more features. So on one hand, there is a innovation which is going on, which is the addition of the features. On the other hand, you have to keep the stability of the already delivered MVPs which the customers have paid and bought. So you need to now not only have the development, but you also need to have an operations team helping you to maintain the operation, that is, maintain those products which are already sold to the customer. So the more complicated the product, the more customizations that has been done to the for each of the customers, the more complicated it becomes, more difficult it becomes. However, we cannot have a development team and an ops team working in silo, which we see in all the big companies most of the time. We need to break that wall of confusion. We need to break that wall and remove that silo and have dev and ops work together. While I am developing, immediately at the same time, there should be a continuous testing. It should not wait for somebody else when they get time to do a test when all the product is done. Each and every piece of code every day needs testing. Each and every piece of code that is created has to be tested to see first whether it does what it's supposed to do. Second, it integrates with the MVPs which is already been provided so it doesn't break those. Number 3, your environment should be ready for the next set, your test environment, your development environment, your production environment, and all these has to be continuous. You will be surprised. Can any of you guess per day how many release happens? However small it is, how many release happens in Google per day? That's a question. Can I get some figures?
Please type in your answers. Okay, Niladri, probably you will have to help them out.
Okay, so the every day in Google 89,000 releases happens. 89,000 every day. That's why they can take care of every one of us and whatever we are doing, whatever things which are not working as per expectation, everything that customers are sending their comments and suggestions, we don't have a big team like Google to do such things. So we have to work together. We have to work smarter. We have to be agile in our way of doing things. We have to be innovative, not only with the product, but innovative in the way of doing things. And that's where DevOps culture is important. That is where we need a cross-skilled, self-organized team. We need to use concepts of lean like avoiding waste. Do not do things which does not add or contribute to the process. We should not, or rather we should remove the bottleneck that is there. So if I say that there are 5 pieces of code that is developed in your company every day, but you have testers who can test 2 code every day, what is the point in developing 5 code where only 2 will be able to be tested? Rather, move 1 person or 2 person from the development to testing who also is capable of testing, and you have a 3 plus 3 kind of people. So 3 pieces of code is getting developed, 3 pieces of code is getting tested, and there is a continuous flow. And that's what we learn in Kanban, to optimize our workflow so that nobody is sitting idle waiting for the work to come to them. It's a criminal waste of resource. And for a startup, it is absolutely not possible. We do not have the luxury of such waste. We cannot wait, my boss will come, the owner, the entrepreneur will come, he will do sales. No, if he is busy with something else, somebody else has to carry on doing the sales. If somebody needs some coding to be done, somebody has from the group itself has to do it. So you need people who can complement each other. So coming back to that same thing that I have spoken earlier, that we need a cross-skilled set of people doing the work. So what is the steps to be taken? So first of all, for you to find out the minimum viable product, write down your product concept. What is your concept? What is your product going to do? Then find out who is your customer, who is going to pay for that product. Then what is the problem you are solving for that customer? So when you know who is your customer, then you know whose problem you are solving, then you know what problem you are solving. And then comes the how. How does your product solve that problem? And based on this, how the product solves the problem, you will get the list of key features of the product. I have said key features, I have not said all features. There will be many features, but you need to identify that key features. And what is that key features? The MVP, the things that excite them, the things that will make them to buy that product. And it is all about perception. It is all about them feeling that yes, it is of value. Somebody within us will buy maybe 10,000, 15,000 rupees worth of a mobile phone. Whereas there are people who will buy a iPhone 7 Plus, which is 90,000, 128 GB of RAM. What is the difference? The person who is buying 15,000 rupees worth of phone feels that the value that I get by using that phone is something more than 15,000. That's why I'm ready to pay only 15,000. But the person who is paying 90,000, he feels that can be anything. It's not necessary that it has to be tangible. It can be just that I am owning an iPhone. The perception of that person is that there is a value. It is more valuable than 90,000 that I am spending for whatever reason. We need to understand from our customer that perception, what is valuable, why it is valuable. And on the basis of that, we have to identify the key features. And that's where we have to act on it. Once we identify all these, we have to test it out. Where do we test it out? One, we try and do surveys. We try and do surveys first with our people who we know. Then we do survey with the set of people. We extend our search, friends. And then gradually maybe extend it outside if you have access. Identify those MVPs and then see how to test it. So a lot of times you will find that for testing, you select certain people and say, okay, I'm giving it to you to test this particular app. I'm giving it to you free to test this particular product. You have to identify certain such people with whom you can interact, with whom you can get inputs, their feedback, and you can interact very closely so that you can get those inputs which will help you to make those adjustments and make a minimum viable product which the market, the customers are ready to buy.
So Niladri, Zamir at this point wants to know if does agility need to be part of the development?
Agility needs to be part of the whole organization. So it
And
has
he
to be there.
also would like to know, if it might be expensive to come out with frequent releases, because being a startup in the initial phase, you obviously do not have a liberty to, bring out the product every now and then.
Very good question. It apparently might seem to be more costly because you are having to do certain things in shorter spread, so you are doing things quite often. But if you look at the long run, having worked for 1 year where you have spent money, where you have spent your energy, where you have burnt yourselves out, your whole team has burnt out, and then knowing something is not what customers are willing to pay is a much bigger expense and a loss which is difficult to recover than knowing it every 1 month or 2 months with a shorter result, a shorter sprint or shorter time frame. So apparently it might seem that it is looking a bit expensive. We are doing so much of things. We are making so many changes, but those so many changes are all for good. So your rework, your scrap, your goodwill, all those will be protected. So even if you go with the customer and tell the customer, who is, as I said in the beginning, is somebody you know who can share their feedback openly. You will not take it as a criticism. On the same side, you also can clearly see value that they are giving right inputs, and when you do that, you have already got a handful of customer who is actually going to buy your product. Remember one thing, you may go to different people, your friends, relatives, whoever it is, and they will all say that, yeah, boss, you are doing a great job. This is great product. Yeah. You take the product and ask them, give me 100 rupees for this product. Most probably they might not give, or they will think 100 times before giving. It's easy to say all these things, but when it really comes to buying, they will think in a different way. And you need to get them to think in that different way by making them to buy. So first, get them addicted, get them used to this, let them feel that yes, this is valuable to them. And that is possible only when you have a problem which you are solving, and you are solving it in an easy manner. Today we are talking about all these digital India, we are talking about smart cities, we are talking about Internet of Things. Hundreds and hundreds of different things can be brought in. New ventures, new entrepreneurs will come up building different things. Is everything going to be needed? Is everything going to be acceptable by customer to buy? Most probably no. We have to give something which the customer really values. So any other question?
Ladri, Syed would also like to know if it is possible for startups to grow organically without having any financial support from investors. The much asked question, I guess. Everybody wants to know.
Right. So if you are it all depends on how you are looking at it. Startups is not like running a big company. Startups challenges, startups requirements are different. And I am from the opinion it is better to do things on your own and not look at money from funding agencies at the beginning. I will tell you for 2 reasons for that. First of all, if we are not doing it, bringing money from our own, we are not committed. We generally tend to see in our mind that, oh, somebody else has given the money, let's spend it. Because we all come from those companies where that money problem was never a problem. It was always there. So you need resources, you get it. You need a laptop, you get it. You need a AC in your place, you get it. You need people to travel in an AC car, you get it. You have to travel on a air flight, you get it. Changing that mindset into going on the foot, going on in a bus from Bangalore to Mumbai or Bangalore to Hyderabad to meet a client and all doesn't come so easy. So you need to get into that habit. You have to be thrifty. You need to spend really cautiously because every penny counts. That is the first thing. So the mindset is important. The second point which is important is whenever there is money, we tend to spend. So we will unnecessarily make expenses which we could have avoided. We would have been innovative in doing things in a different way, which now with the money in my hand, I will do a different way. In the process, I may not succeed and I may end up using up the money. And third, which is the most important point, nobody is giving you money for charity. If they are not giving money for charity, that is their business. They are doing business by giving money and getting returns. They will expect a 30% return every year at least. And they will be behind you with a whip to make you run to get that 30%. And if you really can do that much, why did you even need that money in the first place, first of all? Second, yes, it also needs you to really jump or grow exponentially. You cannot always grow one project, two project, one people, two people kind of way. Once you attain a particular level, you need to grow. You need to grow in a very fast pace. That is where you want to get the money, because that is the time where you have already proved that you can survive, your product is good, you have a client base, and you have a value, your business has a value. And if your business has a high valuation, you will give less equity for a greater amount of money. If you try to do it in the beginning, you will end up giving 50% of your business for some 25 lakhs, and then you will see that when you are actually doing business, working your whatever off, you are now, when the time comes for getting the profit, most of your profit is going to that people who had given you that small piddly 25 lakhs which you spend that time. So we have to be careful. We have to be clear about why we need the money. What is it going to do? Am I going to give back 30% on that money that I am taking? If I am not ready for it, don't go for it. Hundreds of startups actually fail because of this. They would have survived, but they die because they cannot sustain the fast pace that the investors wants them to go. Does it answer the question?
I hope it does, yes. It is important to weigh the pros and cons of, taking money, borrowing money from the market, from the investor, finding an angel investor, investing that amount of time and effort in finding an investor when you really can do it on your own rather than giving the investor 30%, and if you really are going to make that kind of an effort, why not keep it for yourself if you initially can bring out your own, using your own funds. So yes, I guess that makes a lot of sense.
Right. The next step is, once now you know what you need to build and all, when you build it, you need to also in parallel start thinking of how to test it. And again come to that same friend, family, friend and network and give them and start getting them to use and see what their inputs are, what is it that they are talking about. And from that discussion, from that interactions, you will get to know what is your value proposition. And that's where now once you accommodate all those that are relevant, you have to challenge them to buy. Free, fine. Even family, friend and network, free is fine. The moment you ask them, hey, buy this from me at a cheaper price. That's when the fun
So Abhishek
starts.
at this point asked that what if the customer actually agrees to the concept and also the pricing but still does not end up buying the product?
That means whatever that person has been saying is not the truth. So that's why this point, challenge them to buy. The point is you take out money. If you are still willing to take out money, not just saying, yeah, this is good, that is, you are doing excellent work, that is where the test of the pudding is. Are they really going to take out the money? So just having people saying this, you have done a great job, is not good enough. So you get the inputs up to a certain extent, and that's where the next step is to challenge them to buy. And once they start buying, it's fine. But if they are not buying, ask them why they are not buying. What will make them to buy? So you have to again go to the drawing board. Yes, you have to repeat that activity. But ultimately, it is only when they are buying your product is ready for the market. That means you have got your value proposition. That means people sees value in this. Pricing comes
Abhishek
further
kind
down.
of feels that maybe the reason for not accepting the product was that the client felt that the product will actually take away their job.
That can be one situation, but then you are not testing with only one client. You have to test with multiple. So not necessary that everybody is going to be apprehensive about something. However, I will also say that this input is a good input, because if you get to know that there is somebody who is looking at it as an apprehension, they are feeling threatened about it, you need to address that, because a portion of your market, if in the previous slide we talked about who are your customers, if these are your customers and they are apprehensive, you need to do something about it. And if you cannot address that, obviously this will be a challenge. Remember the days when I started off 1990s, when the computers started for the first time. That is the time you think of all these union organizations in different parts of India were so averse to computerization. Oh, computers, that means we are going to lose job. So they will have hartals, they will have these strikes, and they will have processions coming out every day and night. But it was a constructive decision of different organizations who worked with different parties, stakeholders, to see how they can address that and say that, hey, it's not going to be taking away jobs, but it is going to give more jobs, and it is going to get the families to earn much more. So we need to address those things, and it is always good to have such kind of feedback. And based on all these, you build the product.
So basically the client is feeling threatened. What should the person do in that scenario? I
You
mean,
need
the
to
feedback
understand.
is definitely positive, right? He's positive because that's kind of threatening that this product will kind of take away his job or his business.
So there are two parts to it. One part is that either there is a wrong apprehension that they are, just having that apprehension, but which is not going to happen. In that case, you have to convince them by actually showing facts and figures and showing how this is not going to affect them, using bodies which are above them to explain to them, yes, this is not something which is for taking away your job or whatever apprehension you have. If that is not the case and it is actually going to happen to that client, then that client is not your client. That is not your customer base that you are looking at. You are looking at a different customer base. So you have to change your strategy. So when I said identify your customers, you have to identify these things. Are these your customers actually? So if you look at it, Reliance started doing those, not only Reliance, all these, There was once upon a time, and 3 to 5 years back, I think, that the FDIs were supposed to be expected in creating like retail stores for vegetables and things like that, like Reliance. So Walmart and all was trying to do, and then there was a huge hue and cry about it, and it stopped at one point of time. But okay, they couldn't convince the whole thing, so they had to move to somewhere else. But if you look at it, Reliance is still there, Reliance Fresh. If you look at More is there. If you look at Nature's Basket, Godrej is there. So big companies have been able to still survive, showing that the market is different, showing that the apprehension is wrong, the farmers are going to get it. Yes, there are foul plays in between in different parts by different parties, which will have to be addressed as in the case-to-case scenario. But you really have to identify what is the apprehension, is it a right apprehension, can it be handled? If not, that is not the right set of customer for you.
Abhishek, I hope that answers your questions pretty much in detail. So Niladri, what's the next step after we've actually built the product?
Yeah, so now when you are building, first of all, to build you need a good team. And as I said, as an entrepreneur, nobody else will be able to help you on that. You have to decide what is your key strength. Then you know what are the different other skill sets that are required. And as I say, it is not only technical skill set, and you have to acquire a team, both technical and non-technical, who will complement each other in your work and should have the same objective in mind. If your idea is to build that organization, everybody else has to be committed towards that. Not somebody who just wants to come because he wants, so startups has a lot of money. I get, when I take interviews, I get that. People comes and says, oh, I want 1 lakh rupees per month. Fair enough. Why do you want 1 lakh rupees per month? No, startups has a lot of money. They get a lot of funding. Happiness, don't want. So we need to be careful who we are choosing. They have to gel with your mindset because you are going to be in this marriage for long. You cannot afford to spend your valuable years and hours of the beginning where you are all of you fighting, all of you trying to survive, all of you learning what needs to be done, and then that learning is lost because somebody just felt unhappy about it. So you need to really look at committed people. It's a difficult task, but that needs to be done. You need to have a good team. Just not take somebody because you feel that that person is either known to you or that person is a very great technical guy. If you have technical guy, that is good enough. Every guy doesn't need to be the expert. You need to build teams. You need to look at cost. You need to see all those. Identifying the MVP, we have already done. Produce using agile method. So use Scrum, use Lean Startup, use Kanban. I don't say that use only one thing. Use everything. Take the best of everything, map it together and see how it works. Say for example, if you are looking at a Scrum kind of scenario, we don't need to go for regular reporting of making nice looking PPTs and reports to report to each other. Hey, we are a team, we are a small team, we are talking every day and night. Rather, the information radiators are important, which can be put up on the different walls, and every day people, while doing a stand-up meeting, can update it. And so I don't need to go to you to ask, hey, what have you done or what is the progress? I can just look at these information radiators because each one of us is responsible for that, for updating my portion of the work, and I can see that it is happening. Test with your network, we have already said in delivery. Fail first, learn first. That is again another concept. So as I said, the shorter the cycle, the more you fail in smaller things, you learn faster and you can already take care of it in the next cycle. And you adjust your product with the feedback. Here, this particular point is specifically important because as a technology person, we get to be a bit complacent saying that, hey, we have done a great job. It's technically great. So whatever the customer says, either we ignore it or we feel that there is too much of work which is already there. So we look at it later and that later never comes. So better that you use that process, agile process, where you can bring in these into the product backlog, into the sprint backlog, and carry on doing it. So you are 100% sure that you are not missing out any of these which are relevant, and you have a much better acceptable product available to the market. And once the product starts selling, you need to build your support team, and that is not after that. You have to build the support from the beginning. So people who are in the development should also gradually get involved in support along with additional support people, because now money is also coming for you. You are already selling. So get the infrastructure in place. Where here you have to see whether you have to do your own infrastructure, whether you can do it with cloud-based infrastructure, because today so much of cloud-based infrastructure is available and it is pay per use, so you may save on those things. So you have to plan all those. Is it possible technically to do that? Development and support works hand in hand. You have to have the support team should be able to know what development is doing so that they are better prepared at the time of supporting. Similarly, the development also needs to know that support is ready. They need to know that the production environment is ready, where to deploy it. And both feedback needs to come. Operations feedback needs to come to development. Development people needs to help support in the initial stages, and that continuous thing has to happen. You have to work hand in hand, and that's where continuous testing, continuous integration, continuous delivery works, and that is possible only when you have both the teams working first. Tools, yes, as we grow we will need tools, but the first thing is whether the mindset of the people, whether the culture of the people is in there to work together. So support is again something which you have to plan, you have to think of and take it forward, because it's only with support your products which is already in the market will keep running well. You cannot have a product launched in the market, a phone which is launched in the market. Do you go to buy a phone? When we go to buy a phone, one of the things which we check is where do we get the support? Is there a support center nearby? Why? Because it is wrong to expect that it will never go for need a support. If it doesn't need, fine. A laptop doesn't need to go for a support for next 3 years. But by chance, if anything happens, a simple thing. I'm buying something in the airport and my laptop bag was there on somewhere and somebody pulled something, so my bag fell, my display went off. What will I do? I have to go for the support. Even for those things, I need a support center. So for all our products, depending on what kind of product, what it is, we will need support. Even for service, we will need support. I'm not only talking about products, but also support for services are necessary. And we have to plan the development and how it will be supported hand in hand together, and we should be ready for it. After selling 10 customers the product, then if there is a problem, then we start running helter-skelter to find out how to help that customer to support that. Won't work. We need to be prepared for it too. So typically that's what I had to say. It's already, I think, a few minutes over. Any further questions you can ask?
So Nalapi, how closely does this resonate with the service industry, apart from what you mentioned with the product industry? How closely, I believe the entire process is pretty similar within the services industry too, right?
Absolutely. That's the reason why I said a little time back is that it is not only about product but also support. So let's say, for example, I do a lot of consulting, I do a lot of training. Now, when I want to go for a training, when I want to go for a consulting, I also need to understand what kind of consulting people will take, what kind of training people will take, what are the trainings which everybody is giving, what is the uniqueness that I am bringing in that training. And that's where today people are coming up with, okay, add gamification, have online kind of mixture of online and trainer physically being there, kind of mixture of those trainings, bring in assessment together also, and so on and so forth. So In service industry also, we are talking about minimum viable product. It is not a tangible product, but what is the service? Are the customer ready for taking that service? And it's a bigger challenge, because in a product, the customer can still touch and feel the product, but a service, it's a theory. So
Right.
convincing becomes much more difficult.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the insights into the entire process and the entire startup's journey from idea to product. And I guess we have a lot of takeaways from this session, especially the fact being that, even if you have 20% of the product ready, just get out there, bring out your product, because it is important to launch it before you look at, accomplishing 100%. Until then, somebody else would have already launched the product. Moreover, don't try to always reinvent the wheel, I guess. It's about it's a lot about mergers. Like for the most common example, as Niladri gave, about the cell phone, bringing the phone and the camera together. It's a lot about mergers these days. Even within the services, people want to have everything in as a one-stop solution. So let's not reinvent the wheel. Let's try and work in collaboration. Let's bring out something that meets the needs of masses rather than the same 50 million of the population. Let's try and invent or be innovative about aspects that meet the needs of today's society um, in abundance, and meet the masses, meets the not just the urban but the rural areas as well. And that's where the main startup enterprising innovative solutions lie, probably. Is that right, Niladri?
Yeah, that's right. There's a lot of new things to happen. So we need to think innovative. We need to think innovative products, services, which help solving problems, and we need to be innovative in our way of executing and delivering.
Absolutely.
Thank
I
you,
guess
everyone.
that's it. We do not have any more questions, and in case you do, please feel free to write in any time. The Startups Coalition team will be more than happy to address any concerns you do have. Thank you so much, Niladri, for taking the time to take this webinar, and I hope it has been of immense use to the audience. Thank you all for attending the seminar, for attending the webinar, and we look forward to your participation in any forthcoming events and forthcoming webinars as well. Please stay tuned in for further information on forthcoming webinars. Thank you once again, and have a good evening, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.